Every year, I like to showcase what my top 10 games of the year are, but my top 10 tends to be a little bit different because I don't lock it down to games that only came out in the current year, but instead all of the new games to me that I played that year. And it was a heater of the year, one of the best in recent years, so let's take a look at my top 10 games of 2023. I want to start with a couple of honorable mentions just because they're worth bringing up so that I don't have to answer the questions in the comment section. First, we got Dave the Diver. So everybody is going to have Dave the Diver in their top 10 list this year, and for good reason. It's a really fun game with some really good, unique ideas, but I'm going to be the one that drops it out of my top 10 for two reasons. The first is that I wanted to treat this list as a top 10 roguelikes and indie games list, and that game is neither of those. But also, I actually think that this game really spoiled itself in the second half of the game. I found it to become a little grindy, kind of annoying in its late game with a ton of half-baked ideas that kind of took away from the brilliance of a rogue-ish game during the day and then the management game at night. But it's still a charming and beautiful game, and it's definitely still worth playing 100%, but I'm not going to include it in my top 10. And second, we got Beyond the Long Night, which is a brilliant little indie game that is an exploration adventure game that was disguised and advertised as a roguelike, and thus many people were frustrated with it because the roguelike qualities in it are frankly pretty limited. There's not a huge item pool, there's not much enemy variety, there's not much boss variety, and the floors and the rooms are generally pretty similar between runs. But what the game does provide is this beautiful, unraveling storyline, told through tiny, mysterious gameplay elements and you personally exploring throughout the game. It's a perfect 10-ish hour game with some mild roguelike replayability, and I highly, highly recommend it. So now we get into the actual top 10, and we're going to start with a simple little tower defense game that captured my heart, Thronefall. Thronefall takes the typical tower defense style and just kind of twists it a little bit by placing the control in the player to attack the enemies themselves, and then using the money received to build defenses, towers, and frankly more money generators. There's a lot of options for building your character in 5 unique maps. There's different weapons, traits, and difficulty modifiers. One of the biggest complaints for the game is that it takes away decision making from the player by hand-picking the locations that you can build your towers and put your defenses up, and the maps don't change every time you play. And while I agree that this is a valid complaint for the game, I don't think that it necessarily takes away from the replayability of it, and I still think the design of the game is pretty sleek. It's only $7, I think it's worth every penny. At number 9, we've got Balatro, and it's wild that a demo can reach my top 10 games of the year, but that's simply just how good Balatro is. Who knew that taking something as simple as poker and giving it a roguelike twist would create a revolutionary game in this genre? With tons of unique jokers and abilities to manipulate the poker hands that you play, Balatro quickly captured many hearts, including mine, as it was one of the most played demos in the roguelike genre in 2023. The full game releases in early 2024 with even more content, decks, jokers, and fun, and I think the demo has been shut down now, but there's another coming in January, so I guess just wishlist it for now and then buy it like I will immediately upon it releasing. At number 8, we've got Below the Stone, which was my most anticipated game coming into 2023, and while it's not number 1 on my list, it's still in my top 10, and I feel very confident about the game's future. This dwarven mining roguelike has you going deep below the stone to complete quests for collecting precious minerals and ores, exploring dungeons, and fighting enemies. There's tons of unique biomes, enemies, and loot to collect and upgrade your character across the runs, and the current early access is a little limited in its content, which is why I have it only at 8 on this list. The runs are samey, the quests get a little bit repetitive, but the foundation the game has created is going to give it great standing as it moves into its many planned content updates over the next year. So keep your eye on it. At number 7, we've got Endgame of Devil, which was definitely one of my big surprises of the year and a standout for strategy roguelikes. This Luck Be a Landlord style slot machine deck builder has you building an army of enemies to take out those pesky adventurers trying to sneak in and steal your loot. So what makes Endgame of Devil a fascinating game and one worth having alongside Luck Be a Landlord? Well, it may not have that simplistic and easy to pick up charm that Luck Be a Landlord has, but what it does have is a significantly more expanded synergy system, with the cards having hundreds of builds that you can try across many different difficulty levels. It puts a lot more emphasis into the drafting and the deck building component of the game, whereas I feel that Luck Be a Landlord, like the title says, relies on a bit of luck sometimes to win runs. If you're a fan of Luck Be a Landlord and slot machine genres, you should really check this one out. I think it's the best in the genre besides Luck Be a Landlord, which I still have a massive soft spot for. At number 6, we've got Karma Zoo, which is both an infuriating and a lovely game at the same time. This cooperative platformer has you joining lobbies with 9 other random people around the world to complete levels together. Each person has unique abilities that only their character can use, and that ability will be needed at some point to complete the levels. Oh, and you also can't communicate with any of these people except for like quick chat emojis on the screen. It's infuriating because sometimes that tiger just won't stand on the button. You need him to, but then you realize that everybody's just kind of in this together and you all have the same goal. You all just want more hearts and more completed runs so you can unlock more animals and then play even more runs. It's easily the most unique game I've played this year, and it's one that I craved playing more of each time I recorded it. I promise it's way more wholesome and fun than you think. At number 5, we've got Cobalt Core. And Cobalt Core had all of the makings of an amazing game. A simplistic deck-building roguelike with an FTL-like turn-based tactical twist. So what went wrong? Literally nothing, actually. It's probably the most perfect game that I've played this year. It has the same polish of a Slay the Spire where you play it and you just go, wow, this is perfectly designed. So why did I put it at 5th on my list instead of putting it higher? Well, for one, the 4 games above it are just absolute powerhouses. This was an insane year for games. But also, Cobalt Core is a very safe game. It doesn't try to do anything crazy. It just does what it does, and it does it really well. And I think the game probably could have had more put into it. More events, more mechanics, more bosses, but they opted for a tight and well-balanced release, and I really highly respect it. There's a modding community already bubbling over for the game. I think they're going to do a lot of good for it, but I want to stress it's still a near-perfect game for me, and I want to find a place for it on the channel in 2024 because I did not play it nearly as much as I wanted to. It's fantastic. I had to really fight with myself for whether to put Mosa Lina at 3 or 4 on my list, and I settled on 4, and here's why. Mosa Lina is a chaotic and beautiful little game. You're dropped into one of 200 some levels with 3 out of 20 some items, and all you have to do is touch fruits and then escape through the portal. It's simple, right? Sometimes it's much harder. Sometimes it's literally impossible, and that's fine, because when it's impossible, you just start again. There's no real goal, there's no real consequence, there's just you, the fruits, and the exit portal. It's not a roguelike, there's no upgrades, it's not a story game, there's no progression, it's just a simulator. This little chaotic, immersive simulator that twists your brain to think of unique and wacky solutions to the puzzles that it provides. I think it's extremely charming, and it's a game that I simply do not tire of. I load it up occasionally off camera, which is a complete rarity for me with games, just because it's quick, it's snappy, it's pure fun. So why did I put it at 4 instead of 3? Well, something 3 is a powerhouse game, but I also think that Mosa Lina has room for just a tiny bit more. There's already so much replayability in it, but I think that with even more items stretching into that like 40 to 50 range, more levels, and simply more randomness, Mosa Lina will forever stand as one of the most unique indie games of all time. And if I know the dev well enough after chatting with him throughout Mosa Lina's launch, he's gonna get it there. It's just $5. buy it. And at number 3, Void Reigns Upon Her Heart. Yeah, it's a powerhouse, okay? Void Reigns Upon Her Heart is a bullet hell roguelike akin to games like Touhou, but what you're getting when you buy this genius little game is hours and hours of content. With 8 playable characters, over 100 boss fights, hundreds of items, countless achievements, so many achievements in fact that it has now beaten out The Binding of Isaac Rebirth for total achievements at over 680. It's a very replayable game with quick 15 to 30 minute runs in multiple different game modes, each game mode revolutionizing the way the game is played while maintaining its bullet helly core, and every run you play you unlock new things for your next run, including massive game mechanics that make you sit there and wonder what else the game could possibly throw at you. It's been in development for over 5 years now and is still not in its 1.0 release, but this was the first year that I got to sink my teeth into it, and I have no doubt I'm going to lose more teeth playing it in 2024. So we move to number 2, and yeah, okay, I've got a real soft spot for Brutal Orchestra. It was one of the games that plucked me out of a huge slump on my YouTube channel, and it's also one of those roguelikes that does just about everything. You want intense strategic brainbuster turns that make you stare at the screen for minutes calculating solutions? Yeah, Brutal Orchestra has that. Are you an Isaac player that wants wacky weird items that completely change the run you're playing by creating game-breaking synergies? Yup, it's got that. Maybe you're a lore guy. You love meeting new characters, unraveling storylines. Yeah, it's there. And maybe you're just an achievement hunter. You love unlocking new things in each run, mastering the game as every character. Yeah, Brutal Orchestra's got that too. It's just a game with very little flaws, except for Bronzo, who is a flaw in among himself, but I'll let you figure out who he is when you play. The devs are sweethearts, the community is genuinely one of the best I've ever been a part of, and there's a robust modding community with some of the highest quality mods I've ever played for a roguelike game. What more can I say? It was my game of the year for genuinely, months until this silly little game came along. So without further ado, number 1, my game of the year, dotAGE. dotAGE is everything I want from a board gamey turn-based roguelike. And a lot of people don't know this, but I'm a huge board game fan, and my favorite style of board games are worker placement games, which are essentially games where you're given a certain number of workers, and then you assign those workers to locations to get you resources to expand your position, get points, and then eventually win. dotAGE is exactly like this. It's a worker placement board game, but they expand upon that by giving you that chaotic, rimworldy world events. Colonists with unique quirks and mechanics in an ever-changing world with tons of content and unlocks to explore. What I love about dotAGE is how it masterfully implements meta progression into the game by giving you points to spend on new unlocks that then seamlessly integrate into your current existing run. So each time you play, you're learning new mechanics, you're seeing new features, you're learning new things, all while you're still balancing all of the chaotic and terrifying things the developer has created. My only flaw with the game is that the runs are about 15 hours long, and this is hardly a flaw when you need 15 hours to build the beautiful colony you need to survive the apocalypse in the game. And if you mess up and you don't produce enough food, or maybe you don't have enough health during that plague, or maybe there's not enough heat during that snowstorm, well, you lose. But you learned a little bit, you unlocked a little more, and you're back into another run. It's a game that, similar to Civilization, masters the art of one more turn. You just have to see what happens with that Doom event. Well, now my tomatoes are almost grown. But my baby is grown in another 2 turns, so I'll just play until then. Pretty soon your entire night is gone, but you've enjoyed every second of it. Play dotAGE. It's my game of the year, and I can't speak highly enough about it. If you enjoyed this top 10 and you want to see more of all of these games, you can find all of my series for these games linked in the description down below. It's been an awesome year, and I'm excited to see what comes in 2024. See you guys then.